All right, so let's see here. All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So a lot has happened over the past weekend since our last live stream that we're going to cover today in this live stream. We're going to talk about, institutions jumping into cryptocurrency, how Ethereum is becoming at the forefront of that conversation and why this is really big for Ethereum. So some updates on some really awesome projects in the NFT space, in the Ethereum space, all that kind of stuff. All right. So before we get into that, if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to become a blockchain master step by step from start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, so we got a bunch of people in the chat rolling in here. I can't read some of these names. Let's see here. We got Nardia, Cajun, Anas. Awesome, very cool. So welcome. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope everybody's excited to jump back into their week, into the crypto space. We do these live streams every single weekday, about 9:30 a.m. Central Time. We get started a little bit late today, but if you can turn on notifications to get notified about these. If you're not, sometimes people don't get those notifications. You can just show back up here. So the first thing I want to talk about today is institutional adoption of cryptocurrency. This is a recurring theme that's been going on this year. And really for the past year, people have been talking about this as being a big catalyst for the current cryptocurrency bull run that we're a part of. Don't forget, in order to move the needle on cryptocurrency prices, you basically need the same people who are already in the crypto markets to buy more or get new people to come in and buy cryptocurrency, or both, right? And why institutional adoption of cryptocurrency is so powerful is institutions can move the needle way more than quote unquote retail investors, you or me, smaller players who are just getting online and Googling, how do I buy Bitcoin or how do I buy cryptocurrency and sign up for an exchange account and then buy it that way. It takes a lot more of those people buying in size than institutions who can come in and buy with, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars in cryptocurrency. I mean, we saw, Elon Musk, Tesla, buying $1.5 billion of cryptocurrency for their balance sheet. We've seen, MicroStrategy last year. We got an entire list that we can look at here in a minute of, publicly traded companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet and some that also hold Ether. Okay. So Ether, in my opinion, is the next big institutional pick. And, getting into ETH now before we have lots of institutional adoption of it is sort of a massive opportunity. Of course, not financial advice, right? Nobody's got a crystal ball on these things, but that's how I feel. And so the video that I want to show you today is the first thing that came up as a question about this on CNBC, okay, talking about ETH, okay? So I want to play that clip right now and kind of show you sort of where the thought process is with this. You pull it up here. So the clip is, like I said, on CNBC, interviewed Anthony Scaramucci. So if you're not familiar with him, he's the former White House Director of Communications, Goldman Sachs, investment banking, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty, pretty impressive background here. Let's go ahead and pull up this clip. I'm going to play it and kind of give you my commentary on some of it. So let's just do this. Sorry, I got to navigate this during the live stream. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
Anthony, one place, by the way, where Retail Joe, in many ways, has actually got there first before the pros is crypto. And I know now you're in the Bitcoin business. I'm curious what you actually think of Ethereum.
All right, so full pause right there. The fact that they're leading this question with, this Bitcoin thing. So what about Ethereum? What do you think about this? So first and foremost, this just tells you that this is the top of a lot of people's mind right now who are kind of sitting on the sidelines, wanted to get into the crypto space. Because, they're asked this question for a reason. And that to me seems like probably one of the number one reasons why this would even come up.
And the reason I keep thinking about this is I know some people who think that the true value proposition over the long term between Bitcoin, which I know has been the winner thus far, is actually Ethereum, given NFTs, given all of the things that are going to potentially happen in the future that may require Ethereum and not Bitcoin. What do you think?
So, the story of Ethereum having all these capabilities beyond Bitcoin is definitely starting to, elevate into it's becoming top of mind for a lot of people, right? the fact that people were like, oh, hey, there's this Bitcoin thing that basically does one thing, but then we have this Ethereum thing that does so much more. Won't this also be big? Like, this is what people are, they're starting to connect the dots, right? So let's just kind of hear his response to that.
Listen, I think there's a very big market for Ethereum, and I predict that Ethereum has good fundamentals and will grow. But I'm in a institutionalist sort of business. I think like an institutionalist, and I've got to get my clients thinking about cryptocurrency and digital assets. So as a first step, I'm focused on Bitcoin, and we only have now a Bitcoin fund. Could we have an Ethereum fund in the future? Yes, we certainly could.
So anyways, I won't play the entire clip. He kind of riffs on that for a minute and says like, hey, I'm trying to service institutional clients, people who aren't necessarily in crypto at all. We have to focus on Bitcoin now. Like it's the most logical play for people who aren't in crypto. I've said that, tons of times on this channel. I think that's totally legit. I personally hold Bitcoin myself for a lot of the same reasons. So anyways, he kind of goes on through this, but let's just kind of polish it off here at the end and see what his final parting thought is.
On Bitcoin for right now. We're focused on Bitcoin for right now. But yes, I do agree with you on Ethereum. Or if you don't have an opinion on it, I'm positive on Ethereum.
Awesome. So this is pretty crazy. So yeah. So like I said, the fact that we're even having this conversation on CNBC is pretty crazy. It shows you where people's minds are who are sitting on the sidelines, like I said, watching the cryptocurrency space, watching the Bitcoin price, then looking at this Ethereum thing like, hey, why does all this extra stuff? Like, what should we be doing? So his answer is right in line with what I think on this channel, what I've been saying for a long time, which I think Bitcoin's be the first logical choice for institutions, but that the next sort of step down will be ETH. And I think that we'll see adoption towards that. So of course we kind of checked on this chart before. I mentioned it a minute ago, but this is the, cryptocurrencies by market cap. Sorry, not cryptocurrency, this one right here, the publicly traded companies holding cryptocurrency. Their balance sheet, you can check on Bitcoin. So you can see, the leaders here go down. This list is growing. But we actually started a list here of companies who are holding ETH. Now it's just one right now. It doesn't look very impressive, right? We even broke the story on this channel when this came out. So this is the Hong Kong company. I think he pronounced it Meitu. I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. So my apologies if I'm getting that slightly wrong. But yeah, this is also a list that I expect to see grow over time. And that, you can check back on this as it grows. And of course, we'll probably talk about them on this channel as we see these companies added to this list. So yeah, whole point there is institutional adoption is big for crypto, moves the needle a lot faster than retail adoption. He opened that video by saying, Retail Joe, this is one of the first times in history Retail Joe has front run the institutions and gotten to the opportunity before they have. And he's kind of dropping some subtle hints here that Retail Joe has the opportunity to jump in front of institutions on a big bet on Ether, which is exactly what I've talked about, tons of times on this channel. So not financial advice, of course, just my opinion, educational, entertainment purposes only, but yeah, this is big. All right, so let's go ahead and check on the prices because I'm sure people want to kind of look at that after this weekend that we had here. Go ahead and pull up the CoinGecko charts. So it's looking pretty good. We especially for ETH, we've made progress from where we were several days ago. So my thoughts on Friday were that ETH was kind of primed for a kind of explosive move upward. I talked about sort of the history of ETH, how it tends to move. I'm not a big trader, not a big TA guy. I don't want to draw a bunch of, lines on a chart and try to predict exactly where the price is headed. But I've been in these markets for a long time. I've seen sort of how ETH tends to move, which is it gets kind of boring for a while, and then it makes a pretty sharp move in one direction or the other. Okay. And so based on this, based on this really simple pattern that we've kind of had here, it's been boring for a little while. You've kind of see it go up and down, but we've been making higher lows. And then on Friday, we were right here about to break past this previous high, and we did. We did it during the live stream. So we saw a pretty sharp, I would consider that somewhat sharp of a move upward. I thought it might have gone a little bit higher, but that may be what we see play out this week. So I don't know what's going to happen next. Could get boring again for a little while. We could come down and make a lower low, not lower low, excuse me, another low that will be maybe higher than this one. But yeah, big picture on the grand scheme of things in terms of like bull market goes, I don't have any reason to think that, we're at the end of it or anything like that. And so just by that logic, I think good things are going to be around the corner. So we'll see. I'll of course update you every day that that we do these live streams on that. So, all right. So let's look at some other things that happened last weekend. One thing I did see that come up that's pretty cool, is a project in ETH. So this actually happened before. This was earlier last week. We didn't cover it in any of our live stream updates, but this is one that I think is cool for layer 2 scaling. So I talk a lot about layer 2 scaling on this channel, why it's such a big deal for ETH, okay? Because one of the main complaints about ETH is it's too slow, it's too expensive, and how do we fix that? So one of the best ways to do it is layer 2 scaling solutions. So this is building a new computational layer on top of Ethereum, so a new layer that settles its final result on the blockchain itself. It also derives its security from the layer 1 blockchain that is Ethereum. And a cool project that has made some progress on this is a very popular one. So it's OpenSea. Okay, so OpenSea is an NFT platform. It's where you can go. Basically, it's kind of like a eBay for NFTs. You can think about it that way. Powered by smart contracts straight on the blockchain. So that they let's see here. Pull this story. They add an Ethereum layer 2 protocol for gas-free trading. So they're using Immutable X. Okay, so this is a really exciting experiment to talk about how we can try to do gasless transactions on Ethereum. So I haven't personally used this. Says they're rolling it out. I don't see that it's actually been launched just yet. If it has and you all know about it and have used it before, let me know in the comment section below. But they're using they're using this, and I think this is something that's cool and exciting. We're seeing these experiments come out all the time because people are trying to answer those questions. How do we scale Ethereum? How do we make it more user-friendly? How do we, get the blockchain ready for prime time so that it can support these major use cases and support all of these users? Of course, Ethereum 2.0 is going to help out a lot with that, but long-term, we're going to see a combination of Ethereum 2.0 plus layer 2 scaling solutions to make, ETH do what it's really supposed to do long-term for a large number of people. Because that's what you have to do. If you're going to have a blockchain that supports the scale of something like Visa, for example, where you have all these crazy amount of transactions coming through, it's a function of two things. It's a function of the processing time for each transaction and then how many transactions you can do at one time. So that's two things. I'll show you on screen here. Sometimes people don't understand this, so I think it's important to illustrate. So basically, you have two dimensions that you have to improve. And I won't get too technical on this, but this is a really basic technical concept that I think everybody should understand. So basically, like, you have all these transactions coming in. You essentially have a bottleneck, right, or a log jam kind of situation, all right, and you have this processor right here. So this processor can be improved in two ways. You can basically say, and this takes a certain amount of time. Let's say it's like, 10 seconds. Okay. 10 seconds. And let's say that this can do 100 transactions at a time. Okay. Or really, let's just say it's to do one transaction at a time. Okay. So basically you can improve this by saying, well, we can do now 100 transactions at a time. Okay. Now that's literally 100x the scaling capability. Or you can say, well, we can cut this down to 1 second per transaction. And then now you can do, 1,000 transactions inside that window that you could normally only do one transaction per 10 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So basically there are two different vectors that you can work on to improve the scalability of and throughput of something like this. So these are different. You're trying to attack this from different angles. Ethereum 2.0 helps this for sure. But we also need layer 2 on top of this to also help attack those two vectors from different angles. So another thing I thought was pretty cool from, while we're still talking about ETH 2, let's talk about the progress on this. People ask me all the time, like, hey, when's Ethereum 2.0 going to get here? Okay. So be clear about that. Ethereum 2.0 is part of a multi-phase rollout, where basically we break it into multiple phases. Phase 0 has already happened, or we're in phase 0 right now. It launched last November. This is basically where we set up a separate blockchain to the one that we use right now. So if you use Ethereum today, using Ethereum 1.0, whenever we move to Ethereum 2.0, we'll essentially merge the blockchains together. So we have another Ethereum 2.0 being developed right now. This is sort of the development environment where we can, do stuff that doesn't affect all the activity that we currently do on Ethereum. And eventually those will merge in later phases, okay? And part of the thing people want to do right now is merge those in so that we can actually get proof of stake on Ethereum 1.0 right now. So we see some interesting feedback on people's desire for this to happen. So we got ETH 2.0 researcher here, Justin, talking about early polling suggests support for a 2021 minimum viable merge target. So this is something that just happened. This is not like an official source or anything. This is just some Twitter chatter, all that kind of stuff. This is not like official news or anything. I just want to bring this up. Okay. Very clear about what this is. It's no official announcement or anything like that. Just looking at some sentiment here. So it says the merge comes after EIP 1559 itself slated for the London hard fork in July/August. So minimum viable means no transfers, no withdrawals, no stateless, no statelessness, no major EVM change. There's a lot of technical jargon in there, but basically there's a lot of people who want this to happen in 2021. Okay, so this is not ETH 2.0. like fully getting here in 2021. That's not the point. But the point is like trying to get some of these things here faster that will help some of these things in the short term and also speed up the long-term roadmap of ETH 2.0 coming into fruition. So to be perfectly clear, we do not exactly know when ETH 2.0 is going to get here. We don't have firm timelines on this. But we do see a lot of sentiment for it to get here sooner than later by people who are able to actually influence those decisions, okay? Because that's how Ethereum works. It's a decentralized community that essentially develops Ethereum 2.0. It's not just a company that sits back and like pulls levers, totally and says like, this is where we're going to do things. Some people don't totally understand that when they get into Ethereum. Of course, other projects work a little bit differently from that, a little more centralized in their governance structures. Yeah. That's the point is basically that we're going to see a lot of this come sooner than I think some people actually expect. Somebody says what layer 3 solutions are compared to layer 2. Did someone say stake? Awesome. Yes. Talk about proof of stake. So, another thing that was pretty cool that I saw this past week, we saw a little bit of dialogue. ETH and DeFi and NFTs, they really are bubbling up to, popular conversation. I mean, I was actually talking to somebody this weekend who I hadn't seen in a very long time, who is not technical, don't really know, probably wouldn't have any reason to know much about blockchain. They just asked me straight up, like, hey, what's an NFT? Can you like explain this thing to me? I was like, yeah, totally, definitely can. But another thing I want to talk about is I saw this conversation on Twitter that I actually jumped into and got a little bit of action on. Was Toby, who's the CEO of Shopify. So I think most people here, Shopify needs no introduction, but in case you don't know what Shopify is, it's one of the biggest e-commerce platforms online, where it's basically, it's kind of like a decentralized e-commerce platform where sellers can come in and like start their own store, right? They really easily sell their own products. But he was like talking about, he spent the morning dabbling with ETH smart contracts. Mainly want to understand how ERC20 tokens work. Fascinating world. Talking about how he used Remix, and that was really cool. And he kind of jumped in, was talking about like, hey, DeFi, Twitter, what are the commerce related opportunities you're most excited about? What role do you want to see Shopify play? And he kind of talks about their sort of decentralized ethos already. That's kind of in the spirit of what they do. So this is pretty cool. I actually kind of turned him on to my Solidity tutorials, and he at least kind of gave me a nod about that and says, "Hey, great tutorial." So that was pretty awesome. So big fan. I've been a big fan for a long time. I used to use Shopify stores back in the day. Shopify is an awesome company. I'm also a big fan of kind of his style and everything, what he does there. So yeah, lots of people are getting into this. There's lots of people who are important for making major decisions that will affect lots of people who are sitting there saying, "Hey, we should probably pay attention to this DeFi thing." Like how can we leverage this? Or at least how can we ensure that we have a business that will, coexist in this world where DeFi is gaining lots of steam and traction. So that's proof positive. But I thought it was an awesome conversation. I think Shopify is a great company. That was one of the highlights of my week, jumping into that conversation. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into some questions here in the chat. Somebody says, when your hairstylist asks you to buy or how to buy Cardano, it's time to start selling. That's awesome. So somebody's asking a question about the recent masterclass. So we can circle back to that in a minute. So I don't have an official target for ETH, at least no public target. So social blockchain network anytime soon? That's a good question. So we've had lots of people try experiments on social, implementations of like social media on blockchain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We talked a lot about Web3 on this channel too. I talked about how it's a big trend that is likely to take off and gain a lot of attention and popularity. We've seen NFTs take off. We've seen, DeFi take off for sure. Blockchain's a big overarching narrative that, hey, this is going to disrupt all the things, so to speak. Pay attention to this. And then you have these little smaller narratives pop up like NFTs, like DeFi. And these things kind of get popularity for a while. And then, so they get a little bit saturated, but and it just jumps in phases, right? So I'm talking about how Web3 is potentially another thing that people can latch on to. It's a thing that people can understand pretty quickly. So really quick recap of what is Web3. So if DeFi is taking all the existing financial products that we know right now, savings, loans, trading, derivatives, et cetera, moving them over to the blockchain, Web 3.0 is basically taking everything that you can think about on the internet, how the internet runs, the actual infrastructure of the internet, and moving it over to the blockchain also. So things like web servers, Amazon AWS. What does AWS do? Databases, front-end websites, back-end websites, serverless applications, like all this crazy stuff. Everything you could think that you would need to do to build a full stack web application, you could do with AWS. Other layers on top of that, like DNS, domain names, all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty deep world. So you could sort of decentralize all these pieces. Now that being said, I think we could be the beginning of some of this taking off. We don't know for sure. We saw Filecoin go up like crazy. So Filecoin is an example of a Web 3.0 project. So why am I talking about this? Why am I bringing this up? Well, part of it's to reiterate that theme, something to watch out for, but part of it's to go towards the question that this person's asking about social networks. So blockchain-based social networks would be a part of that Web 3.0 umbrella, right? It's not really a DeFi project. It's not really an NFT project. It's more of a Web 3.0 project. So it kind of needs a use case and a narrative for it to take off. So the narrative, of course, is Web 3. So why do we care about Web 3? Well, there's lots of benefits like trustlessness, censorship resistance. So I think people are, at least a certain number of people are concerned about censorship online. Where we've seen pretty big deplatformings happen over the past, year or so. We've seen, people's posts taken down. We've seen YouTube videos censored. We've seen all that kind of stuff, right? So when you're talking about Web 3.0 paradigm, it really, that censorship resistance where people can't censor you. You put it on the blockchain, as long as the protocol, says that nobody can touch this, then it can't really be touched, okay? So that's one benefit of Web3 that I can see taking off. But in order for a Web 3.0 social network to really gain adoption, one of two things has to happen. Okay. There has to be a major benefit that people can't get in the traditional system that they're still willing to pay for. Because still, blockchain's a pay-to-play system, and also that people are willing to sort of overlook the less than ideal user experience to get that benefit. Okay, so I'll explain what I mean by that. With cryptocurrency, let's just rewind in time 2-3 years. A lot of people watching this live stream weren't here 2-3 years ago. That's okay. I'll explain it though. It's still a lot of this way. It's still this way to many degrees today, which is there's bad user experience in a lot of dApps. Okay, you got to go buy cryptocurrency on an exchange, go to a wallet, jump through lots of hoops to even start using these applications. It's not great user experience really at all, right? It's expensive, it's slow. But people are still doing it because there's a big reason. They can make gains that they can't make somewhere else, right? So similarly, for Web 3.0 to take off now, it has to have a benefit that outweighs the costs of doing the transactions on Web 3.0 now, and also jumping through all the crazy hoops that are required to get that, that will result in a less than ideal user experience. Okay, so the whole point is, I don't see those things really bubbling up right now. Okay. That being said, I do think that Web 3.0 can be a huge thing long term. It's just that we're not quite there yet, in my opinion, to see it, reach this next leg of wide adoption. Now, are we at a place where we can reach that next level of hype? We sure can. We sure can, because you can do lots of things. It still has strong fundamentals right now. There's lots of things you can do with Web3. You can make this awesome stuff. It's, a nascent technology, in my opinion, that I think will grow quite a bit. You can see it, you can use it, you can put your hands on it. It's not like, vaporware. So that's another reason I think that can be big in the short term, but also big in the long term. Both those things can be true at the same time. So that being said, going back to answer the original question, what I think about Web 3.0 or blockchain-based social media platforms, you could build one right now. It'd be really hard to build one that would convince a bunch of people to delete their Facebook accounts and move over to that blockchain-based social network. Do I think we could get there in time? I do think we can. Will people actually start deleting their Facebook accounts and moving over to blockchain Web 3.0? We'll see. It's really hard to convince people to change their behaviors unless you give them a really, really good reason to do it. So some huge incentive, maybe. Somebody says, I need $1 billion. I would also like $1 billion. So if you get $1 billion, maybe you can share some with me. Somebody says, I have no coding experience. I just got a Python course yesterday, so can I learn Solidity? Then what else should I learn before I get into Solidity? So if you want to learn blockchain, just skip all that stuff and start with Solidity. That's what I would say. Just start with exactly what you want to learn. There's no reason you have to go learn a bunch of other programming languages before you learn blockchain. Learn the exact thing you want to learn first, and then learn everything else, everything else as you go after you learn blockchain or while you're doing it. It's not that different, honestly, on the grand scheme of things compared to other things. Like if you want to become a mobile developer, nobody tells you to learn all this other stuff before you learn mobile development. If you want to become a web developer, nobody says, well, you got to learn all this other stuff before you start learning web-specific things. If you want to learn blockchain-specific things first, and then learn all the other skills around it that you need to become productive. You want to become a full-stack blockchain developer. It's certainly helpful to know JavaScript, all that extra stuff, but you can just learn it as you go. All right, everybody, so that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. They really help these videos out so the more people can learn about blockchain. If you're just fascinated with this technology, you want to get your hands dirty today, do exactly what this person's asking in the chat. How can I learn blockchain as my first programming language? Maybe you're a programmer already. If anybody and trying to answer that question, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find any of my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. If you like those, you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you how to become a blockchain master step by step from start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I felt people with zero coding experience become real world blockchain developers in a matter of months. All right. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching.